I want to talk about the energy of fear and how I think fear can really hold us back from our joy and from our full expression. It isn't that fear is necessarily a bad thing, it's that we generally focus on it because that's the way it has always been for humankind. There were so many things to be fearful of back in our generational history that just aren't so. And when you take a different look at fear and what fear is, you can see that fear is just a calling to the unknown. It's a sort of an aspirational thing. It can even be an inspirational thing, a motivational thing that can show you where true growth and change can be possible. The reason that we have fear is because we think that we're going to lose something that we possibly have. And there's two parts to that. Number one, you can't you can't hold something into your hand when your hand is full of something. So you do, in a sense, have to lose something. But also, energetically, if you look, at your long-term experience past death, anything that you have now, you don't have anyway. You're going to lose it anyway. So what would possibly happen if you were to let go of something old to bring in something new? How would that be? Because, even if you get something new, if you're still coming at it from your old paradigm, from your old history, from the way you treated it before, are you even going to experience it as this new person? Or are you even going to hold on to it? That's why you see so many people, that perhaps like win the lottery and then they're actually in worse financial shape years later because they never accept themselves as that new idea of having wealth and being of wealth. They're more comfortable in their space of what they know. So fear can be a calling to the unknown. If you can look at it like that, I often think of fear as like this flaming doorway that you walk through. And as you walk through it, it just burns off all the stuff of the old. And then it gives space for a refresh. If you think about it, like forests, often they'll do controlled fires, and that's because it burns out the old and then it refreshes the nutrients, and then the new can grow as well. Fear is kind of the same way we treat, money. We think of fear as being this control thing that's really controlling us and stopping us from doing things. Well, whether we think of it that way, that's actually what's happening. And the same kind of happens for money. We think that money is in charge, that the reason we can't do things is because we don't have enough of it, or it's not in the right form, or whatever it might be. But money is here to serve us. Money is simply a flow. So it's about changing those relationships to those things that we think are in power of us. It's not taking them away. It's changing our perspective with them. It's changing our identification with all things, actually. I mean, if you think about it, that's really the spiritual awakening path, is really changing your identification and your connection and your relationship with really everything, with life and the world, with yourself, with others, with fear, with money, with love, with, your goals, your aspirations, your purposes, and really trying to figure out what is your motivation behind all of those things. Is your motivation because somebody told you you're supposed to do that way, or somebody gave you a definition of what happiness or success was, or a definition of what you were supposed to be? Or is it because that's your true passion, your purpose? Because only when you come from passion and purpose are you going to be able to really excel in something. And, because everything that you do has an energy attached to it. So if you do something like, say you create you're cooking, how they also often say that something is cooked with love and how you can taste that. Well, everything is like that. Everything that you do is done with either a sense of love or a sense of, desperation or fear or anxiety or anger. And that really feeds right into anything that you do in this world. And so it's really unless you change your identification and your relationship with the ideas of, fear, and maybe even identification with even your ability and worthiness to have happiness and joy, because so many of us don't even think that we're worthy of it. Don't think that's a thing that we can have, perhaps because we don't even know anybody else that experiences it. So perhaps you're the first person in your tribe. I guess I'd call it a tribe, the people that surround you, the people that you know. You could be the first person who's thinking about possibly changing your identification with these things. Maybe you're quote unquote the most successful or the most happiest, you're the most abundant one that's there. And you're feeling a sort of a guilt from, the one who is excelling and not everyone else is. That's also a sense of fear of that unknown. But perhaps you can take that up and you can decide that this is your calling to the new, and that perhaps you can be a leader in that. Perhaps you can be the one that showcases what that looks like. What does that look like in a lived experience? And that's what I'm wanting to do with this channel, is just show how this looks actually in a day-to-day 24/7 experience. It's so easy to teach something up on a stage or create a workshop or create a course or write a book. But then there's that time, when you just have to kind of make it happen, and you don't have, that true, like, you don't have that situation like that where you have it all wrapped up in a pretty little package. It comes to you in all kinds of different ways and different expectations, because everybody is constantly being called to learn and grow. Everybody, all of us have that moment of fear. I mean, even when I'm walking around here and I see some of my new neighbors have only been here a month and a half, and they see me talking on the phone, I get a little trepidation. They're going to think I'm weird. You know what I mean? That's just my calling to learn how to work with that. Why is it that I would feel that trepidation? Why is it that I would feel that fear? What does it even matter if they didn't like it? Or how do I even know if they are thinking bad of me for doing it? Perhaps they're even thinking, gosh, I could do that too. Perhaps I'm calling someone else to do it. Perhaps I'm calling you to do it, because it can be a very scary thing. And the interesting thing is that as you change your relationship with fear, as you change your relationship even with money, if you change your relationship, all these things, the amount of it and the occurrence of it changes too. As you change your relationship with fear and you understand what it is and what it's there for, it comes to you much, much less often. I mean, if you really gear up your fear muscle and you gear up your fear awareness, the thing of it is that you see more things to be fearful of. You have more fear. Your fear gets ramped up. And that's why so many people now are anxious and depressed, because they're in this cycle, this fear cycle where they've really amped up that, I guess I'd say, the muscle. It's not really a muscle, but you know what I mean? They've geared up that pathway, that neural pathway in their brain where they can see more things to be fearful of. And it's a more efficient route for the brain, is to simply see everything through that scope. And how you see things, how you associate with things, whether it's from a fear base or from a joy base, whether you decide that things are there to help you, or if you decide that things are there to hold you back and perhaps, become obstacles for you or challenges for you, setbacks. However you see it is how it presents itself. It's like these rose-colored these colored glasses that you put on, or if you have these fear-colored glasses, you see everything from a fear base, and you know people like that. You know that whenever you've made a decision to do something, you've always had somebody who has told you, oh, you better be careful. Perhaps you're not big enough for that. Perhaps you might lose everything. And a lot of times those people are really coming from a sense of love, because they don't want to see you hurt. But, pain is simply a part of life. Being hurt is a part of life. Suffering in the pain and suffering in the hurt, that's a choice. Because what you can do when you do have those pains and hurts, you can understand that you now have the opportunity to become a new person, because you've been through that. You have that wisdom and that knowledge. You can now say, well, I've tried that, and perhaps I can try it again with new, fresh eyes, understanding the risks that are involved. Or maybe I'll try it a different way. Or maybe it wasn't worth that. Maybe I'll try later, at a later date. It's never a loss. Nothing is never truly a loss. Not if you take in the wisdom and the knowledge that you experience from things. That's something that money can't even buy. So it's actually priceless. So it's really about changing that identification. It's about changing the definition. It's about changing your relationship with these things that changes your life. It's not about changing the outside of what your life looks like. It's about changing your inside here and here about how you identify, define, and really have a relationship with really everything and everyone and every situation. I hope that helps someone today. I know I've gotten a good walk in before I go to work. One of my last days to sell cars before I start to go back to a different job that I did before. Until later, love, peace, and release.